Hello everyone, and welcome back to Coding with Mook. And in this video, we'll be looking at the basic usage of Git. Now, I've opened up an Explorer window and my command prompt, and I've navigated to my temp folder. You should be already familiar with how to do that from the previous video about getting used to the command line. Now, in this video, we'll be having a look at how to properly and how to use the basics of Git. Now, before we get into it, let's do a quick recap of what Git is going to do for us. Git is going to be keeping track of the different versions of our project. Now, it's going to need a database to keep track of everything for us. Now, we will have to create that database ourselves. Git isn't going to create a database or hasn't created a database yet, and we're going to be creating that database right now. So the first command that you will need to learn is git init. Git init is going to create a database in your project folder where it's going to be keeping track of all the changes and all the different versions of your project. Okay, so just type in git init, hit enter, and you should be seeing this happening, or should be seeing this message: initialized empty git repository in c:/temp.git. And if you look closely in my Explorer window, it created a folder named .git. And if you look really closely, you should be able to see that it's slightly opaque, meaning that it's a hidden folder. And especially for the Linux people out there, it starts with a dot, so that also means this is a hidden folder. Okay. So if I just type in dir here, you won't be seeing it. Okay. If I hide my hidden items or not show my hidden items, my directory appears empty. But just so you know, it isn't anymore. Okay. This .git folder is your repository or the Git database, right? It's called a Git repository. Don't know why they chose that name. Anyway. Okay, now that we've created our Git repository, let's see how we can add our project files into that database or that Git database. Okay, now before we can add a file, we're going to have to create a file. So let's create a test.txt file, simple. And let's do a hello world, traditions, right? Okay, so I've created a file, test.txt, entered some text into it, and as you can see here, I now have a new file in my directory. Now the first thing I'm going to teach you is seeing what Git sees. And for that, we're going to be using git status. Now, you might have noticed already is that everything I do with Git, I start out with typing git. That's important to note. Git is what we call a tree command. So everything you do while interacting with Git will start with typing in the command git. And then after that will come another command. So git init, which signifies I want to create a new repository. Now the next command is git status, which asks Git, what is your status and what is the status of the current working directory as compared to what you have in your database. And if I hit enter now, it's going to show me a lot of information. Namely, we're on branch master. Now, more on branches in one of the next videos. We're not going to look into branches just yet. We haven't got any commits yet. That's fine. And we'll see in what a commit is in just a second. But we do have some untracked files. Untracked means, in essence, we have a new file. Okay. Nothing added to commit, but untracked files present. Okay, that's our general status, is we haven't got anything to commit because we're gonna have to explicitly tell Git that we want to add test.txt to our project and that Git needs to add it to the database or to the repository. Okay. So it also gives you a few hints. Now, how do I get my file into my database? We're going to be using the add command or git add command. Okay, let's do that then. Git add and then the file git test.txt. That's one way of doing it. There's a shorter way of doing it. You could also do git add dot. But what the dot does, and if you have seen my previous video about the command line, dot means the current working directory. So what git add dot does is it's going to add everything in your current working directory, including all the subdirectories. Everything is going to be added into that staging commit or the staging area before the commit. Okay, so that's what the add does. Add adds files to a sort of staging area. And the best way I can describe it is like a loading platform. If you've ever been or worked in a trucking company, you have those big warehouses. But when they load up a truck, they put everything that needs to go on that truck onto the loading dock, right? And you can compare the staging area from Git to that loading dock. So you get everything ready, and then once you're ready, that's when you start loading your truck, or that's when we commit our files to the database, right? So we can add everything, or we can add file by file, whichever is the most useful for you. And we'll be looking into best practices in another video, in which we will see that we actually want to add our files file by file and not just add everything in one go. Sometimes it's easier. If you're really disciplined, then git add dot will be a good solution. But for me personally, I usually just do it file by file. Okay, now I added my file, and let's see what the status is now. Now my file shows up in green. It's a new file, but I don't have any commits yet. So what I just told you is my file is now ready to be added to the database. It's on the loading dock, but it's not in the truck yet. Okay. Now to get my file in the truck, I have to commit everything. Now for the first time, I'm going to show you a shortcut, and that's probably the one that you'll be using the most. Git commit -m, and then in between double quotes, we're going to give it a commit message, right? What that means will become clear in a second as well. So our commit will move all the files or all the changes from our loading dock or from our staging area into the database. Okay, now this is the first time I will be committing something, so I'm expecting something. I'm expecting an error message, or actually a message that I forgot to do something. And as you can see, here it is. I forgot to identify myself. This is something you'll have to do only once on every computer. So after you installed Git, you'll only have to do this once. So basically, what you'll have to do is you'll have to configure your email and your username. This is to identify or to tell Git and to keep track of who committed what changes. Okay, so you'll only have to do this once. So git config global user.email. Don't worry, you don't have to add your official email here. Now, when you're working at your employer and you're using his computer, or you get a computer from your employer, and you probably an email, I can only suggest to you, but strongly suggest to you that you use an official email here. I'm not going to do that here. I'm just going to do this at some email server.com. I'm not going to add my real email address here. So what I mean by this is Git does not check your email, but the thing is that this email address and my name that I'm going to be putting in the next command will be added to the database, right? It's one way of keeping track of who did what work. It sometimes gets used for playing the blame game, but in general, it's just to keep track of who did what. Okay. So git config my user email and git config my user name. Just do it, Patrick. There we go. And now I should be able to commit my files to the database. First commit and enter. And now it committed my files to the database. If you see this, one file changed, one insertion, create mode. You'll only see create mode for new files, right? But if you see one file changed, one insertion, or 10 files changed, 25 insertions, whatever, that generally means that your files have been committed. Now, we can run status again, and my status command, or the output of my status command, has shortened a lot. So nothing to commit, working tree clean. This is what you want to see after a commit. Well, not after every commit, but this is what you generally want to see at the end of the day, at the end of your working day. This means working tree clean means that all the files in your current working directory are the same as the data that's been stored in the Git database. Okay, so all the data that's been committed to the Git database is just the same or represents the same data that can be found in our project directory. That's what working tree clean means. Okay, I'll show you immediately why that is or why that's important. Let's change our file again and just add hello world, save. If I run git status again, you'll see my working tree isn't clean anymore, and I have changes not staged for commit yet, right? So let's add them again. Git add. I'm going to add my text file, and I'm going to commit again. Now I'm not going to be using the shortcut, and I'll show you what happens then. Is now it opens up my text editor. This is the VI editor. It's the one I warned you about. If you've configured your Git correctly, like I've showed you in installing Git, you should be getting your favorite text editor. If that's VI, kudos. If not, then you should have your Notepad++ open now with similar text in your Notepad++, or if you're using Visual Studio Code, or if you're using regular Notepad, you should be kind of seeing the same text, but in your chosen editor. Okay, now I'm going to add my commit message. It's the same thing that I added in my first commit, but between the brackets. This is my second commit. But the difference is if you're using the -m, you can only add one line. Here I can add multiple lines, right? It's acting a little bit weird, but that's probably not really a problem. Just a visual glitch. Yeah, it's probably just a visual glitch. Okay, I'm going to save. So if you're in Notepad++ or in Visual Studio Code, you just save and exit your editor. It's the same thing I'm doing here. So :write and quit. I'm just going to save my changes or save my commit message and then go out, quit out of my editor. And you'll see that the same thing that you got from the same output from our first commit, but then slightly different because this is my second commit. One file changed, 3 insertions. I added 3 lines, 2 hello worlds and an empty line, 1 deletion. I probably deleted, I think I deleted an empty, yeah, I deleted a space there. So that's been deleted. And that's it. Okay, git status, and I'm back on a clean working tree. Nice. Okay, so we had git init to create our repository, git add to add new files or changed files to a sort of staging area, and then git commit to actually write to the database. Okay, now git status, we had the command git status to check if there's something not committed to the database yet, or if your working tree is clean, everything is fine, everything is in the database as it should be. Now, last commit for this video is the git log command, and the git log command is to check on all the previous commits. So with git log, you can check on everything that happened before now. So you can see here, I have my first commit. That's the first one, happened at 1631. And then I have my second commit. That's the one I had, that I did just a second ago with my second commit. And you can see here, I have an extra line here, something that you can't do with the -m method. So if you want to add some more information about your commit, you're gonna have to use your text editor. If one line is fine, then you can use the -m commit method. Okay. So what all of this means, we'll be seeing in the next video. But for now, this is how we add files to our database or to our Git repository. Okay, good. Now, in the next video, we'll be looking at how we can retrieve information from our database and how we can revert files to a previous version. Okay, but that's for the next video. Okay, everybody, good day, be safe, and see you in the next video.